We begin with another beheading by the terror group threatening Syria and Iraq, the Islamic State. They had threatened to kill British hostages and British hostage David Haines. Now the video of his slaying has been released on social media. Haines' family had repeatedly tried to make contact with the Islamic State with no success. London is confirming the killing. British Prime Minister David Cameron says, quote, "The murder of David Haines is an act of pure evil. My heart goes out to his family, who have shown extraordinary courage and fortitude." CCTV's Sean Calebs joins me now, along with Dan Whitehead from London. But we're going to start with Sean, who was in Iraq when the Islamic State first committed one of these acts of beheading just a few weeks ago. And in the aftermath, Washington countered by stepping up air assaults against the Islamic State. Sean.
Yeah, sheer act of barbarism. Again, there has been another grim release from the terrorist organization, the Islamic State. It has become a sad, familiar, grisly refrain. This time, the victim is from Scotland, 44-year-old David Haines. We will show you some of the video. Again, it shows a kneeling captive with a desert backdrop. The Islamic State figure clad in black is once again wielding a knife. The IS terrorist has become known as Johnny Jihad, and experts who have been poring over these videos say he has a South London accent. The previous IS-2 victims were Americans, journalists David Foley and Stephen Sotloff. Haines, like the others who went tragically before him, appears to be speaking under duress.
My name is David Cawthorne Haines. I would like to declare that I hold you, David Cameron, entirely responsible for my execution. You entered voluntarily into a coalition with the United States against the Islamic State, just as your predecessor, Tony Blair, did, following a trend amongst our British Prime Ministers who can't find the courage to say no to the Americans. Unfortunately, it is we, the British public, that in the end will pay the price for our Parliament's selfish decisions.
This British man has to pay the price for your promise, Cameron, to arm the Peshmerga against the Islamic State. Ironically, he has spent a decade of his life serving under the same Royal Air Force that is responsible for delivering those arms. Your evil alliance with America, which continues to strike the Muslims of Iraq and most recently bombed the Haditha Dam, will only accelerate your destruction. And playing the role of the obedient lapdog, Cameron, will only drag you and your people into another bloody and unwinnable war.
David Haines was captured in Syria last year. At the time, he was working for a French organization, Acted, a relief organization, and he had previously worked to assist people in need in South Sudan and Libya. Haines has two children, a 17-year-old daughter with his first wife and a 4-year-old daughter with his current wife. She describes him as a fantastic man and father. Haines had only been working with the group Acted in Syria for 10 days when he was taken hostage. He was captured along with Federico Matka, an Italian-Swiss aid worker who was released 4 months ago after a ransom was paid. Susan, the grim video ended with the ISIS thug showing yet another hostage dressed in orange. His name is Alan Henning, also an aid worker who was also captured in Syria.
Well, Sean, the group is using social media once again to try and intimidate all of us, but they in fact have done many other gruesome acts that we have not highlighted. We have had the mass killings, people buried alive. We've seen people walked out to their death. It just doesn't seem to end, but they seem to be using the social media to their advantage.
Yeah, this is a terrorist organization in every sense of the word. Their goal is to spread terror, to spread fear. That is one of their chief weapons. And we saw that when we were in Iraq just a few weeks ago, talking to people who were terrified that if they would be captured by IS, they would have their heads cut off, put on a spike. This is an organization that has killed children. It has killed women. This is now the third, horrific video that they have released. It's just barbaric. There is no other way to talk about this savage act. And the fact that they are, when I talk about ISIS, it seems to be an organization that is very good at using social media. It's very good at getting its message out there. One thing we have heard from a lot of the experts we spoke with is this is an organization that not just a bunch of thugs running wild in the desert. They're educated, they know what to do, they're well armed, they are well financed, and they are doing their job in terms of just trying to terrify people in Syria, terrify people in Iraq. And remember, this all comes with the backdrop of John Kerry just left the Arab Gulf states and now trying to gain more support for a coalition to stand up against the Islamic State. What we saw after the Foley execution, the U.S. grit its teeth and really ramp up air attacks, especially in the area of the Mosul Dam. One reason we know this video, this tragic video released tonight, is relatively recent. The thug in the black there talks about the attacks on the Haditha Dam, and those have only been going on for a short time.
So we have James Foley here, obviously Stephen Sotloff right here, and now David Haines. Why David Haines? Why did they capture him to begin with? He's an aid worker over there.
These guys don't play by any rules. Right. If they can catch you, they want to do one of two things. They want to ransom you to get money. Secondly, they want to use the captives in some creative way on social media like they have been doing to spread this message of fear, and specifically going after Great Britain because they have given humanitarian relief to people in Syria, to people in Iraq. They have done surveillance, flying over the area. There are reports that the SAS troops on the ground doing what they can. They have also armed the Peshmerga, the Kurdish fighters who stood up against ISIS and really stopped them in their tracks once these airstrikes began and really cut off their...
It's clear Britain did not negotiate with them this time around.
No, and you heard what David Cameron's... Well, we talked about one thing that David Cameron released on social media tonight. We're going to hear more about that in a bit. But this is the thing that just repulses people in a civilized world. It is a pure act of savagery. Sadly, this also plays into the hands of those that are joining this organization. A lot of people in the Middle East, whether they want to or not, when they go in and take over these towns. And secondly, we know that there are scores of Americans, scores of Brits, scores of Canadians who have joined up with this terrorist organization. And one wonders what this is going to do now to John Kerry's effort to put together a coalition and what the reaction is going to be from Great Britain.
Of course, you just returned from Iraq. This is a pretty big area of land that they've taken on. They basically have like what, their own government, their own command center.
Well, they've taken over what they have. They have a huge chunk of northwest Syria. They've taken over a large chunk of northern Iraq. And the significance is they've been able to take over oil fields. They've been able to take over banks. They've been able to take over military bases. They've been able to take over an airfield in Syria. And there are reports that there have been some planes missing in that area. So that also fans the flames of another 9/11-like attack, perhaps this time in the Middle East or in Europe somewhere. But make no mistake, this is an organization that is entrenched well. They are brutal. They are completely without any kind of, you can use whatever you want. I mean, they're a savage, barbaric organization.
No regard for anybody. Doesn't matter, Muslim, Christian, regardless of your background.
This is a Sunni extremist organization that has killed Sunnis.
Sunnis as well. So. Yes. All right. Thank you, Sean Caleb.